Hi, folks. You're with Tat today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the spread of news, how many news outlets will pick up particular stories, and then what the viewership is of those stories. So I've done some preliminary numbers, having a bit of a background in statistics. Maybe this is an opportunity, if someone hasn't already done it, for some bright software entrepreneur to pick up on this one. It's essentially an anti-globalist position to even sort of notice this. So I guess I guess that there'll be the market size will be limited by that factor. But so I've got two stories here. Now, one is where a group of black people murder, just murder a white person. And it's in a big Western city. And you'd think this would be quite a big story. There's clearly racial hatred of blacks racially hating white people. There's a white person who's got no rap sheet there. They've got no criminal record of any sort. They're minding their own business. There's just a rando attack, and the person is murdered by a black mob. Now, the extent to which is reported at all, and it wasn't widely reported, it was glossed over. The races of the people weren't mentioned. It was just someone had died, and there was a small riot that may have got out of hand, and no big deal. And by the way, let's talk about the latest fast food menu or something. So that around the same time or close to it, there was a situation where a black and a white man struggled during a home invasion. The gun goes off, the black guy dies. Now that is being pushed relentlessly by the globalist controlled media. So what I did is I looked at the number of outlets, took in an approximate number of total media outlets, some of them being reasonably small. It doesn't account for like small or even decent size for that matter, YouTube channels. There's big channels out there, the Quartering, Mark Dice, and so on. There are YouTubers there with some quite big following, but not including them. So just getting the total number of news outlets, then looking at the amount of news outlets that actually would handle or even mention the story at all, and would declare the facts in the story that the black mob murdered the white person, would actually say that, or allegedly murdered, but at least mention it and report the facts rather than avoid them. But then look at the reach that these stories have. Now, you can't look at each, the time involved in looking at each story individually. So I looked at the average sort of viewership, total subscribers or overall viewership, then average viewership per story. And again, this is in when it was a social issue story. You can have stories about, I don't know, the effect of bird flu on the chickens in South Tallahassee or something. No one's going to look at those sort of stories, but these other stories, they're ginned up and ramped up to foment social conflict and racial division and this sort of thing. But looking at the reach now, the news outlets that handled and mentioned that it was a black gang killing a white person, or a bunch of black people, about 15%. So only 15% of the news outlets actually ran the story. And of those, they were clustered around the lower end of the viewership scale. So, you're looking at maybe 150 to 200,000 people saw that story. Now, that means, 85% of the media, which includes nearly all the bigger stations and the bigger outlets, didn't run the story. And they had a much greater reach, as in more viewers and so on. And of course, they're taxpayer funded, they're globalist NGO funded. They've got massive financial support and funding for them, but they don't even talk about that. Now, that's a big story. Some bunch of black rioters, clearly very racist in their intent and their utterances, go and just rando kill some white person. I mean, that's got to be international headlines, hasn't it? I mean, surely that's newsworthy. But no, the globalist controlled media didn't touch. Now, I looked at the media stations that did run the story, and they were none of them were receiving government funding, and all of them were independent. Now, you could say they were, right wing, centre right, whatever you want to call them, centre. But they're not activist organisations. They're reporting the news, and they do it. And compared to the others, at least, they're quite even-handed. But they're much smaller stations with much less funding and less government support and all that sort of stuff. So now the reverse is where the black and the white guy struggled during a home invasion, and the black guy gets killed. Those stories were run by nearly every media outlet, including the right-wing ones mentioned it. But the mainstream media, or the globalist-controlled, government-funded media, they all ran it as a racial issue. It wasn't just a struggle, black guy trying to invade. They tried to run it, no, it must have been mistaken identity or something like that. And maybe the white guy did overreact a bit, I don't know. But the idea that it was racial is just absurd. I mean, beyond absurd. But they all ran it as a racial issue. It was a damn fucking fascist, white, fucking supremacist, fucking Christian, fucking Nazi. The Nazi did it. And they very much pushed that white supremacist, may have had tea with Hitler the day before, and Hitler was seen leaving the house, and really ginning it up to the max, and running with it. Now, when you look at, say, 200,000, give or take, 200,000 people would have seen the story about the blacks killing the white person. I mean, in what was an unprovoked, rando, vicious attack, sufficiently premeditated at least, and there's no follow up on that or anything. There's no reporting on it. Who was arrested and that they were black, and there's nothing like that. And then this, where the white guy's picture is plastered everywhere, and the black guy who did it is a picture of him when he was 10 years old and looking very sort of innocent and angelic, and that, the whole thing is being narrative managed and massaged and manipulated to the max. Now that, which clearly suggests evil white supremacist kills helpless, defensive black guy in an evil fucking white supremacist racist attack, which it clearly wasn't. In that, more than 20 million people are going to see that, or did see it, give or take. And then there are constant follow-up stories, ginning up and using that event, which they've misreported, and using that as a launching pad to talk about racism and talk about evil white people and white supremacists and gun control for white people and that sort of stuff. So they gin it up. So if you look at the 20 million, then you can be looking at assuming there's repeat viewers, it's not fresh viewers on each viewing, but I would have given that there's some churn, between 30 and 40 million people saw the evil white guy, poor black victim thing, which again, an outrageous misrepresentation, but only 200,000 saw the black gang killing the white person. So I just wanted to sort of give you that as a snapshot of just how wide the spread is of the misinformation, and as long as the globalists have got an absolute hammerlock on the media landscape, and they do, then they can engage in this sort of misrepresentation. They can invent reality, for fuck's sake. Reality doesn't exist other than what they say it is. That's the extent of this. Now, sure, there's a social media, this channel, for example, a social media area where people can say, what the truth and be accurate and give the facts. But that's minuscule by comparison to the reach that these misinformers have. And so when I sat down and actually crunched the numbers, I hadn't realised the differential was that big. I mean, again, 200,000 see the truth, 40 million see the untruth, and they've got, again, this level of control. Very scary. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.